Green action. Always the right color. What's on your agenda?
Question.
No seats left.
Get out, so you want to see if it wants to speak.
If there's anybody else that hasn't signed up already, if you'd like to take a form and speak before council, please do so now if you would. Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Roll call, Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Mr. Blusko.
Here.
Mr. Merritt.
Here.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Ms. Gilbert.
Present.
Controller, present tonight is Controller Darren Snyder, Administrator Ted Wampel, Assistant City Attorney Maureen Collins, Capital Projects Program Manager Joyce Zakowski, Director of Health Services Hank Rodelsky, Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo. Good evening and welcome to all. Tonight's meeting is a regular session of City Council. Please turn off all cell phones. According to the First Amendment, this meeting is a limited or designated public meeting, as all regular sessions of City Council are. The chairperson is the presiding officer of the meeting. As a City Council meeting, specific rules or procedures of council are followed. The list below are examples of important council rules. They are not intended to be a complete list. First one is persons addressing the council shall limit their address to 5 minutes. Next, all remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any individual member thereof. Next is no persons are allowed to address the council from beyond the rail except the speaker at the dais or the podium who has the floor. Next is preservation of order. The chairperson shall preserve order and decorum, prevent attacks on personalities or the impugning of members' motives. Next is points of order. The chairman shall determine all points of order. Next is persons authorized to be within the council rail. No person except city officers or the representatives shall be permitted within the rail in front of the council during any meeting without the express permission of the council. Finally, in order to be heard by all here in attendance, as well as to be picked up by the microphones and recorders, when members of administration are speaking, please stand up and speak into a microphone, and council will speak into their microphones at the table. There is a matter of clarification. On the agenda tonight, the debt restructuring bond issue, for obvious reasons, will be voted on separately, and if there are no objections from council, by unanimous consent, the other two ordinances will be combined and voted on as a consent agenda. Okay, if there are no objections. Okay. And does anyone from the public wish to comment on legislation pending before council tonight?
Mr. Troy?
Good evening. Once again, we're just, Mike Robb and myself, I'm the president of the Skyhawk Soccer League. I'm George Brown, the president of the South Wilkes-Barre Residents Association, and you're going to be voting tonight on two changes to the ordinances that we're asking. We're hoping we're going to get. So we just want to once again explain the benefits of why we're doing this and ask for your agreement when you vote tonight. This is something that's good and positive for the city, rather than some of the negatives that are happening. So we're hoping that you're going to see that, you're going to embrace that, you're going to allow us to provide family movies at Gordon Avenue Soccer Field for the residents and anyone else, Wilkes-Barre outside the community, that wants to come and have a nice, pleasant evening on Friday nights.
I just left the Riverfront Parks Committee meeting over on Public Square. Another group that I'm affiliated with playing Riverfest, and another ordinance that's on the agenda tonight with the license fees. We're working on that. We put the request in with Mr. Brooks late last year for events just like this. The events in the city overall as a whole, with the enormity of the rest of the agenda tonight, show that we still have a vibrant community with great neighborhoods, with people that like to do activities, give people reasons that they want to live in the city, that they're happy to be here. So even with the enormity of the rest of the agenda tonight, we appreciate your support.
So once again, I'm hoping that you're going to see this in a positive light and give us the good news that we can go ahead, purchase the equipment, purchase the other things that are going to be necessary. So thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Troy?
Dan Troy. First, I'd like to, before I touch on the main ordinance discussion tonight, I want to just address one of the resolutions. I want to express my opposition, although I know it's like hitting my head against the proverbial wall, for the approval of the Wilkes-Barre, suspension of the Wilkes-Barre Code of Ordinances pertaining to the consumption of alcoholic beverages for the Fine Arts Fiesta. I am a teetotaler myself, maybe that has something to do with it, but I really think that this festival can be enjoyed by all, young and old alike, especially the young. I think that sets a bad example for a few people, older people who are of age, to drink while younger people are in attendance. And we all know that the consequences of drinking alcohol can be pretty detrimental for some. So I strongly recommend Council to reconsider this ordinance and to perhaps one time, in all the years the Fine Arts Fiesta has been held, to stop the suspension of this code of ordinances and to prohibit any drinking of alcoholic beverages at this fiesta. It's not needed and it sets a bad example, and in general it's bad for the public. We all know the effects of alcohol consumption. There's drunk driving, accidents, or whatever. And I'd like to address since my time is limited, the ordinance under discussion, which has going to have the most profound impact on the future of the city for many years to come. Even though they provide some short-term relief for debt payments, I'm sorry, Mr. Wampole and Mayor, I'm sorry the Mayor's not in attendance here tonight, but I'm very disappointed with that, since this is going to have a very significant influence on the fiscal future of the city. I strongly recommend Council to, if possible, table this thing and at least consider this, put more thought and vet this thing a little more, especially the ramifications of this. Yes, short-term debt relief will be accomplished. The city's bills may be able to be paid a little easier the next couple of years. But the long-term picture is dire. We all know. And correct me if I'm wrong, interest rates are going to go up significantly. The city's credit rating is going to suffer as a result of adopting this ordinance, this ordinance that's under discussion. And the amount of debt is going to increase dramatically. So the bottom line is here, maybe a few years, and I don't think it's going to, as a taxpayer and a resident here for several years, and somebody who's spoken out very passionately about issues that affect the taxpayers directly, I feel that in the long run, I don't think it takes rocket science or a person who's really accomplished in scientific thinking to know that this thing is going to very detrimentally affect every taxpayer in this city. In the long run, perhaps more so than the short run. But even the short run, I kind of have confidence that even though there might be some debt relief in the next couple of years, the mayor is still going to come to council with a request for an increase in property taxes, and council will probably approve that increase. Maybe there'll be a compromise if there was again this year. But I think, I don't know why I have to keep repeating this over and over, but I think we all know the ramifications, the consequences of adopting this thing. You're going to kind of kick the can down the road. That's a pretty trite, dead metaphor, but it's nevertheless true. You're going to put this you're going to put this under consideration for future councils and future mayors. They're going to be the ones who are going to have to deal with the consequences of this, because the debt is going to increase so dramatically in the next, 10 years or so, Mr. Snyder? I don't have the exact figure, but we all know that, I don't know, it's 2039, or even 2029, I guess, it's going to increase dramatically. So I think we all know, we don't have to be geniuses to figure out. We have a lot of people under limited incomes here, senior citizens and so forth. We have an erosion of our tax base going on. We have, a lot of people who barely can afford to put food on the table now and are working jobs and are owning homes, or maybe want to own a home. This is going to set the wheels in motion for very drastic consequences for the city. I don't mean just more fiscal damage, but more terrible consequences for the taxpayer. And I'd like to appeal in my time remaining to Mr. Brooks, who seems to be the swing vote on this deal. Mr. Brooks, I'm appealing to you directly. Is there any sense of empathy you might have for the taxpayer to come around and see it? And by the way, I just want to very briefly express my gratitude to Ms. Gilbert and to Mr. Merritt for seeing the light on this and voting against it last time. And I hope, Mr. Brooks, you will come around and vote with them, and this thing could be at least rejected for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on pending legislation?
Agent Office Wilkes-Barre. With the whole bond issue, before actually looking into that, how much can you guys actually cut the fat from the administration? Because me being a student, I was alarmed at the fact that Mayor George could actually go to the news outlet to announce that the city is in debt, but yet he's not here. And so I do know the whole thing with the debt is the problem that you guys did inherit. And the only thing with the whole bond issue is you're just, as Mr. Troy said, you're just kicking the can down as far as you can. And, for those who have a choice of buying medication, buying food, paying their bills in order to keep their houses, because right now we're in an age of uncertainty with the new president and the services that he would like to cut in his upcoming tax bill. But, in the long term, how many homeowners that are on fixed income, that are elderly, that are working poor will be priced out of their homes, because eventually, as we all know, the taxpayers is the ones who wind up absorbing the cost of all the decisions that are made here. So please just consider it before you vote on it, because it may not affect you now personally, but it may affect someone you love along the line.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on pending legislation?
John Sosky, Alden Lane. Same thing. I think it's wrong that the mayor's not here. He should be the one selling this. But I'd just like a full explanation, guys, on why you think this is the best plan. If you think it is, if you don't think it is, this would be the time to, put out alternate plan. Tell everybody here now what would be a better way than taking this bond. But my real question is, once we get this, is there a plan from the administration on how this money's going to be spent? Because if the way it's going, we just keep ended up in bonds and 15, 20 years we'll be back here in debt again. So if we are going to take this bond, I just like you guys to keep everybody accountable on how it's going to be spent. But I don't know, just cool explanations on what I think this is, and if not, a better plan. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody wish to comment at all? John, I've said before why I'm voting against it. I just feel that we should look at alternative ways to cut our spending and also to look at different streams of revenue as well. I believe that we need to act on Solomon's Creek immediately. I think that's long overdue, and I think that the people that live near Solomon's Creek and that have businesses there need some sort of relief. So I would be in favor of financing any help for Solomon's Creek wall. However, anything above that right now I can't justify. Does anyone else wish to speak on pending legislation?
Ms. Gilbert? The other side of the coin, there's no new money involved in this other than what is going to be allocated towards the repair of the wall. No one is going to run out and magically have a pot of money and we're going to go out and spend it different places. The debt is the debt. It's not going away. We are encumbered to it. We need to address it. And the only way that we can fiscally be responsible is have level debt funding. We have a significant bump coming up next year that we can't quite candidly afford. We're not trying to take out a loan to go out and do grandiose things. We're trying to address the debt that exists. Every city in this country has debt, some more than others. We need to be able to manage it. And right now, all of it is coming together with a significant increase in another year. And we have to be fiscally responsible and address that. To not address it is not being responsible. We have an issue here. We're not going out and building a new city hall, or we're not going out and doing those types of capital projects. The debt exists. It is here. It's looking at us right now, and all of the experts, everyone from the controller to our finance people to our administration, are looking at this right in front of us right now, and to sit back and not do something about it, I just can't conceive how we could do that. And I agree with what you're saying with all the other things. We need to be responsible with all of our expenditures and address revenue concerns that may not be where we would like them to be. All those things need to be done, and you brought up a litany of them 2 days ago, and I'm not disagreeing with any of them. Certainly, this is just a small part of the solution. There's pension obligations that are going to increase, healthcare costs that are going dramatically, and everything is coming together right in front of us right now. And this is just a very small part of the solution. Other parts of the solution are going to be just as painful, and we're going to have to address those. But right now, this is right in front of us, right here now. It's not that we're going out and doing something that we weren't budgeted for. The debt is the debt. It's got a solid number. We've looked at it. We've brought in all types of experts, and it's just not going away. And we have to address it. And it's going to hit us really hard in another year if we don't do something about it. In addition to all the other problems that we're going to be facing with increasing cost and flat revenue lines. And we have, of course, and you alluded to that too, and we're not disagreeing with any of that. We need to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to increase or at least maintain revenue and cut expenditures. And some of those cuts are going to be painful, I can assure you. So we're not disagreeing with you there. But right now, this is not going away by itself. It is what it is. We've got a solid $2.5 million jump next year that we cannot afford. So just the other side of the coin.
Mr. Brooks?
Sure. I concur a lot with Councilman Barrett has said. I'm studied this for 5 years, so it's nothing that I think we could table to look at again for 5 months. I'm sorry. And I'm really concerned about the long-term financial stability of the city, and this $2 million bump in debt to be paid next year is something that can't be cut next month by the administration to do it. I'm glad that the administration agrees with me that we should act like we're going into Act 47 and come with a 5-year long-term financial plan. I think we can incorporate your ideas, Councilman Gilbert, on a panel of people from the outside, like a Blue Ribbon Commission of financial experts, to go over that 5-year plan that would cut expenses that will be excruciatingly difficult, just like this vote tonight is difficult, and to look at new revenues that are outside of any property tax increase. If I have to choose between debt and tax increases, I will choose the debt. Thought long and hard about this, take it very seriously, and I respect everyone else's opinions on this, and I think we can move forward with it tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Mr. Wample, I just had one quick question for you before we vote. Regarding the bond council, how were they chosen and how did that price for the bond council come to be at $90,000?
It was part of the team put together by BFM, consulting with the administration. As far as the fee, unless Dave Payne wants to talk, I mean, it's pretty much standard what they pay. That's pretty much in line. Keep in mind with what we did, this was proposed back in January. So this whole process, as you know, started back in January. Unfortunately, we're 4 months down the road back to where we thought we would be in January. Bond council has had to redo their writing over and over and over again. So unfortunately, we probably added, probably $20,000, $30,000 more to their fee than they're getting now because of all the additional work that went into rewriting this thing over and over again. So where we are right now is pretty much in line with what we anticipated. It's pretty much in line. I had conversations with Dave Payne from PNC, who's here tonight. I talked to Scott Shearer this afternoon as well, and after we had forwarded that document over to you, that's pretty much in line. If we look at the whole financing, all the closing costs associated with this, it comes out to about, I think the average rate, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, is about 2%.
Correct.
And when we look at the closing costs associated with this particular debt refinancing, it's 1.5. So I think all the parts that are part of this have done a really good job of keeping their expenses below what the norm rate would be.
Okay. So we have shopped around for other bond councils?
Well, again, I will say it's professional services. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of shopping around and getting the best rate. We were working with a team that we're comfortable with and give us the best advice.
All right. No, I know under the previous administration we had bond counsel before, and they charged $25,000 for their work. So I just was curious about the $65,000 difference, and I just want to make sure that we're getting the best service for our money. And
I'll let Dave answer it, but let me just preface by Dave's remarks by saying, again, this thing was redone over and over and over again, and it's a $52 million issue as opposed to some of the other ones we were talking about, the $30 million one they did, Dave, years ago. If you want to, is it okay that we can address?
Yeah, of course.
Just a note on that. Took a look back at the most recent largest transaction for the city. That was the Series C and D of 2015, which aggregated about $34 million. A little bit smaller than the proposed $42 million. This is a much more complex deal, notwithstanding the time involved, and I can't speak for the attorney fees, but I could assume that going back over 6 or 7 different issues to their origins, which in some cases, as I researched it with the financing team, went back into the late 80s, takes an enormous amount of time. They are both opining, both legal counsels are opining on the tax consequences of this, along with the state regulations for local government unit debt. So the complexity of it, the timing of it, the fact that it falls below the 2% normal variance for cost of issuance fees, suggests to me, as I've looked at this, that these are normal fees. I can also address all of the other fees are pretty much standard in terms of percentage of the bond size, so they're pretty much fixed depending upon the size of the issue. So with the size of the issue, historically what was paid on smaller issues, the timing involved and the complexity that I've witnessed, I would suggest that these are in line with regular fees.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we get into the formal voting on tonight's resolutions and ordinances, as you can see on the agenda, there is one item that comes before that, and the next topic, which is on the agenda, is under general discussion. Capital Projects Program Manager Joyce Zakowski will give a brief, concise presentation and explanation on a current project she's working on, which is, by the way, grant funded, and it's called the Green Action Plan. Joyce?
Thank you. Actually, I'm just going to hand everything right over to, we have Andrew Gazone from Land Studies and Robert Hughes, who is the Executive Director of the Eastern PA Coalition for Land and Mine.
They're going to use that screen.
And they, these gentlemen and I have been working together for over a year trying to come up with a plan that will help throughout Wilkes-Barre. So they researched all 5 districts, tried to come up with some benefits to each district. And with their research, they're going to go ahead and let you know what they found in each of your districts briefly. And then we can all communicate via email and see if there's anything else you would like to add, or your input is very much welcome. And that's why I would like them to explain everything to you, because I would love for each district to get a benefit from this plan.
Would you like the lights off, gentlemen?
It's up to everybody, if everybody can see it. I think it's still warming up here.
Looks good.
Okay, well, thank you, Council, for having us here. We won't try and take up too much of your time on the agenda here. There's a lot of important things to talk about in the city, and we feel that this is one of those. There's a grant that we received that's from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And it was a partnership between my nonprofit organization based out of Ashley that does a lot of work on stream restoration, watershed restoration projects throughout the coal region in mining impacted communities, and Wilkes-Barre being one of those heavily impacted, obviously, by mining and some other issues related to it. We partnered with Land Studies as well as a technical assistance provider and the City of Wilkes-Barre through the Bureau of Operations to look at this concept of retaining stormwater and developing a green infrastructure practices for the City of Wilkes-Barre that we think could also help with some of the other sort of pushes that are coming down from the federal level from EPA with their MS4 and outreach and educational outreach needs that are for the city. So this is what we've kind of put together. Okay, so there was a timeline for the project back in July of 2015 through March of 2016. We did some preparation and working with the city, getting the initial information that we needed together for the proposal to be submitted, and we put that together in the fall of 2015, and we kind of had to wait until the ground was awarded, and that wasn't until the spring of 2016. And in the application, what we had proposed is we're doing these sort of best management practices related to and around stormwater, and coming up with some designs, and the costs were going to be put into the grant to actually do these sites that we chose around the city as just some examples of many that are on the watershed action plan that's been developed. So we have some information that Andrew will talk about for that was done in May through October of 2016. Then the watershed action plan we developed over the summer and through the early spring of 2016. It came up with a few master plans also for 3 project areas throughout the city, throughout various districts on Wilkes-Barre. And there was a site construction project that's going to be going on and is going on currently as we speak in coordination with Butch Friday and the Public Works Department. And we have an upcoming rain barrel workshop or 2 that we're going to be doing here in the summer to kind of do a demonstration project for residents that might want to incorporate some type of rain barrels or stormwater best management practices in their home to alleviate some of the water runoff that is causing some of the flooding concerns around the city and our streets and other areas. The summary of the project here through the grant and what was done was, the idea is to improve stormwater management throughout the city of Wilkes-Barre, try and implement ways to reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment discharging into the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay, because the Chesapeake Bay has got a big plan and a big reboot where they're pushing it down on local municipalities throughout Pennsylvania, particularly in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, to do something about it. And so coming up with a plan like this, I think, is going to assist and help the city in moving forward with potentially pursuing other funds to do some of the projects that we've made recommendations for. What we're trying to do is look at areas where we can store it and infiltrate runoff that's coming off of storm water events and heavy rainfalls that we're having through different management practices throughout the city and locations that we've found. And we might be able to retain water, and we might be able to do harvesting of rainwater off of roofs and other locations so that it's not constantly getting into our streams and causing these flash flooding problems and issues that we're having with a lot of the infrastructure throughout the city and the walls such as Solomon's Creek. Again, we're trying to increase the awareness of what this problem is out there and encourage environmental stewardship about the watershed issues, because we think residents can get involved with this type of stuff and do some work with us with some of the projects that we've made recommendations on, should there be funding made available through future grants that we can now go after with the city in partnership to kind of implement some of these recommendations that would hopefully come out of this. And we're going to pilot and demonstrate a residential stormwater management workshop in the city, where the one project is being located on West River and West Ross, I believe. We've been able to touch base with the Borland family, which has a very large driveway over there, that we can set up a demonstration workshop on their driveway. And then we're talking about a second workshop that we'll do in downtown Wilkes-Barre, right on Public Square, to encourage residents to come out. We'll be putting that in the paper and trying to get people to attend and show them what we can discuss about just what homeowners can do. And we have some giveaways through the grant that we're able to give that are downspout disconnect type things that you can actually use to encourage stormwater conservation practices. And then what we want to do is kind of utilize the green stormwater infiltration plan that we have up here that we'll talk about a little bit, the recommendations that are in here, which there are over 100 that we were able to come up with to satisfy the MS4 outreach and education efforts that you're probably seeing a lot of pressure coming down from the EPA. And then pursue future grants, because we know that while there may not be money in the actual budget to do these things, there's no reason why once this plan is put into place, you can't be going after state grants or federal grants or foundation proposals in partnership with groups like ours and others to implement them. So that's a summary. We kind of went through that. Just some pictures here, and I think Andrew's going to talk about some of the examples of doing rain gardens and curb cuts that we can put some of these trenches in, and a rain barrel workshop that we're going to be hosting, and some stormwater detention areas to alleviate some flooding concerns during these flash flooding events that we're seeing throughout the city. These are some of the projects and conceptual plans that are going to be discussed. All right.
So in addition to the rain barrel workshop that will hopefully be happening here towards the end of May and maybe possibly early June, there were some deliverables that Land Studies was brought in to assist with to provide engineering and landscape architecture support on. Those include the green infrastructure design that was referenced, 2 sites, the locations listed there, 1 block apart from each other, would be the design and implementation of essentially rain gardens between the curb and existing sidewalk. The watershed action plan, which is shown on the left of the screen here. 3 concept master plans to go along with the watershed action plan, and then the construction of site number 2, which broke ground today. So, just very briefly, site number 1, 2, South River Street, West Ross. Site 2, West River Street and West Ross. These projects are effectively taking some existing median. On site number 1, it's largely impervious. Site number 2 is grass median. And installing a curb cut to allow some stormwater to enter into what is now a depression, infiltrate it, filter it, and any overflow that results would go into a newly installed catch basin and discharge back into the city's storm sewer system. They're really aimed at improving, at a small scale, improving water quality, and there's aesthetic benefits to it because they're planted very nicely. I have some pictures of some recent installations that we did. So this is just a grading and layout plan for site number 1. I wanted to put it up. There's a lot to look at there, but effectively we're taking out the existing median, putting a curb cut in on the left side of the screen. Water flows in, it flows from left to right, and then a small round catch basin captures it, puts it back in the storm sewer system. And this captures street runoff, 100% impervious coverage. Site number 2, same deal. We've got two, one on each side of the street at the corner of West River and West Ross. From left to right, the water flows, enters through a curb cut, flows across each bioretention area, and any overflow would enter a new catch basin that's connected to these existing storm sewer. Water quality is a benefit of these, but aesthetic improvements to the street corners are also a big part of this. These are some recent installations that my company designed and we oversaw construction on. These are about 2 years old at this point. They've been very low maintenance. Wilkes-Barre and Lancaster County employed us to maintain them in the first year. I think we weeded them twice. The road that is adjacent to these is heavily traveled, salted heavily. The plant selections, which mirror what we've selected for this project at site number 2, can handle fluctuations in moisture levels, and they can tolerate salt. That would result from regular de-icing practices in the winter. After we completed the design of site 1 and 2, we kind of zoomed out and we looked at the city more regionally, and the watershed action plan was completed to identify very quickly a large number of water quality projects that could serve the city for future regulatory compliance and also be a benefit to the community. The term action plan is purposeful. We work with a lot of municipalities, we work with a lot of nonprofit groups, and this is a very fast planning effort that's intended to put a lot of projects on paper and be action oriented. So we don't spend lots of money designing and doing feasibility studies and doing all this planning effort, and then there's no funding left to actually implement. We are a design build company, so we're all about construction and implementation, and the watershed action plan is intended to assist groups in having a checklist. A council member says, I heard about this grant opportunity, what do we got? We've got it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about identifying the project, which we often see as being a pitfall for a lot of groups. They can't figure out what project they want to do. We've identified on this map 47, and in an additional list we've identified over 100 additional projects that vary from public outreach all the way up to large-scale stream restoration projects. It's very varied, and there are really any sort of flavor of the day when it comes to the projects we've picked out.
And just to add, EPCAM has been in both of the watersheds that kind of flow through the city, whether it's Laurel Run or it's Solomon's Creek. We did a conservation plan for Solomon's Creek. We've done a conservation plan for Laurel Run that flow through the city. So we've looked at a lot of these issues at a larger watershed scale, but then also had a chance to come back into the city with both Joyce and Butch and myself being a native of Wilkes-Barre. I knew the whole city. I was able to go to a lot of these parks and go to a lot of these corners where we saw things that could be replicated. So we were able to get out there into the city and look at places where the replication would be easy for these curb cuts as such, and got a bunch of those into the plan. So that may help down the road.
Following completion of the watershed action plan, we looked at all the projects we identified and had to pick 3 as part of this grant to put concept master plans together for. The selection criteria for picking those 3 sites I've put up here. These were general. We wanted to show different size projects. We didn't want 3 small projects. We didn't want 3 huge projects. We wanted a variation of size and scale. All the projects had to be constructible, immediately constructible. They had to represent various stormwater best management practices, have water quality benefit, and we tried to locate them in areas of the city. We didn't want them all on top of each other. We wanted, to represent projects in different parts of the city. So out of this came 3 projects: Cole Street Park Complex, green infrastructure improvements that could be done there, Spring Run at South Empire Street, and then Minor Park. On this watershed action plan, the 3 large red dots indicate where they fall in relation to one another and in relationship within the city. Cole Street Park, it's important to reiterate here that the objective of this was really water quality based. So there could be recreational improvements done at any of these 3 sites. But because that wasn't the emphasis of this particular grant, we chose to focus on sustainable landscape and stormwater solutions and not be concerned with condition of baseball fields and other park amenities. So what we have here is we work from plan left to plan right. Existing parking lot, looking at taking those existing parking stalls and installing porous pavement. Tremendous benefit in water quality. Works towards essentially trying to create a net zero condition for the impervious cover in that parking lot. Just above the existing playground and athletic courts, there's an existing low-lying area, and we just propose making that a bioswale, adding some wildflowers, putting some visual interest in there, perhaps some educational signage, just to increase awareness of these types of facilities. Moving to the right side of the plan, there's a little tributary that flows along the property line at Cole Street, and we would propose a stream restoration there. Bank grading, something very simple, easy to permit, inexpensive to permit, and at the outfall on Sherman Street, we would put a plunge pool that the city could remove sediment from. And the goal there would be sediment reduction. That project in particular is very heavy on the sediment reduction side, which the upper watershed for this particular tributary has a lot of impervious cover and probably generates a lot of sediment loading. Spring Run at Empire Street. This would be a full-blown floodplain restoration of Spring Run. This approach would divert Spring Run through a vacant lot that has over the years seems to not be impacted recently. There's a lot of successional tree growth. A lot of sort of birch and aspen trees are growing, which would kind of indicate that it's largely just sat there undisturbed. We would put a more natural meander back in the stream. Two major benefits to this project would be localized flood reduction and peak rate mitigation, and then also tremendous water quality benefit from sediment and nutrient load reduction standpoint. The existing concrete channel that's already present there that the city cleans out on occasion, we envision that remaining and acting as a forebay to this restoration, so we could use existing infrastructure and add to it, so that channel actually becomes another water quality facility for this type of restoration. And then lastly, we looked at Minor Park. There's an existing park that we were trying to be respectful of the railway right-of-way, so that's why you'll sort of see the rendering there ends rather abruptly, and we would kind of take the same approach as Cole Street, convert the stalls to porous paving, potentially put a vegetated median back in the middle of the parking lot. That could be just your standard median, or it could be some sort of bioretention facility. And then the adjacent swale that captures runoff from both the parking lot and adjacent baseball field could be retrofitted into a bioswale. The proximity to the school would make this an excellent location for some additional environmental education. Along the main road, the street, we would put in some more of these bump outs like we're doing currently, and sort of spruce up the entrance to the park. So the big piece of this for the city, now that many cities and municipalities are regulated under MS4, the bottom line these days is nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment. So we put those four projects together, and I've shown the estimated load reductions that could be recognized. I don't know what the targets are for the city of Wilkes-Barre. We didn't dive into your permit requirements, but you can see that stream restoration and Cole Street Park could have a pretty tremendous impact on some of the requirements that you might be faced with. A couple takeaways from this. Scale plays a very important role in its reduction potential. It can't be too big for the drainage area. It can't be too small for the drainage area. BMPs should be designed to maximize the drainage area and the percent impervious cover. You can't put a teeny tiny rain garden in the middle of the parking lot and expect to get a lot of return out of that because there's just simply too much impervious. The flip side of that is doing a stream restoration in the middle of a farm field might not yield as great results as it would in a place like Spring Run. And then lastly, high efficiency, like a stream restoration, when you can see the values are very high there, offers you the best reduction price per pound, but it would carry a higher initial cost. Okay, with cost being, obviously an important thing for everyone. All of these projects that we've outlined in the Watershed Action Plan, at some point, my company has constructed through grant funding, and through very little cost to the individuals trying to do the project. So we're proposing projects and identifying projects where we know grant funding and grant potential is already there, whether it's state level or federal level. So I guess with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. If we're on a time crunch here, we can get at that.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, down the line, if anyone has any questions, Mike, this is actually the group that we had spoke about. Yeah, and, we can certainly look. They did go about the entire city, but if there's a specific area they missed or that you might have interest in,
I was told twice.
we can.
No, it's from, just a general book site area going down to North Beacon Street.
And that's something we can really take a look at. So that's why I wanted to bring them in.
Because there is a sediment buildup in the creek, and that causes some flooding. Every time the river gets, I think it's 21 feet, that water backs up. I think it would just give us some more. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Okay, we'll get into the formal voting. First is the consent agenda resolutions. Motion, second, and vote. Beth, motion?
Second.
Mike? Barrett? Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Merritt?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilbert?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the single ordinance, which is filed council number 6, 2017, which is the second reading of the long-term restructuring bond issue. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion. Second. Second.
Okay. Mike Belusko and Tony. Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Merritt?
No.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Ms. Gilbert?
No.
Motion passes. And finally, we have the consent agenda ordinances for the other two ordinances. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Bill? Second. Mike Merritt? Okay. Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Merritt?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilbert?
Yes.
Motion passes also. That's it for the formal business.
Mr. Barrett, do you have anything? Mike?
One or two things since Tuesday. Maybe our administrator can bring me up to speed on it. I have a question on the George Ave revitalization project. I know there's a lot of utility work going on, and you and I had met up there in the fall, and I know there were some plans, but I had a question from I think you might know the person that asked about the status of it and where it's going, and do we have any fresh plans for that?
It's progressing, it's plodding along, and I don't have anything other than the fact that we're looking forward to it.
Would we see anything this spring, any movement on any of this, or physical
Late spring,
work?
most likely.
Late spring, okay. All right, that's good. The Parsons firehouse that turned into a scrapyard there, I know that it's been looked at by the inspectors. There are vehicles there without doors, hoods, and it's right next to the park.
Cited again today.
Cited today, okay, that's exactly what I was gonna ask that we do. because obviously the abatement request didn't have any effect. And I hope that we continue doing that with all these problem properties. I know we give them a letter and they don't do anything. We need to, and if they don't do anything for another month, we should obviously cite them again.
We do.
That's good. I appreciate that. And there's an ordinance, we have an ordinance on trailers without being attached to a towing vehicle parked on the street. There's a construction trailer parked in the 400 block of Scott Street. This just came to my attention today. I know I sent you some other ones, but it's a large construction trailer sitting there. I think there's a business nearby, and these vehicles, as you know, cannot be parked on the street without the towing vehicle. So if you have somebody check that out, that'd be great. And that's all that I have since earlier. Thank you.
Mr. Belisca?
Just two things for Ted. Ted, the mayor's made aware of this. I understand he was actually on location, and the resident just asked me to find out what's going on with it. Apparently at 31 Orchard, the rear of 31 Orchard, there's a 4-car garage, roof kind of collapsing, threatening a neighbor's garage. The roof is collapsing. And he's just asking me to see if I can find out, what became of it. He hasn't heard anything in months. 31 Orchard in the rear, garage.
Okay.
The other thing is, where do we stand? Talk about revenues now, what we needed. Where do we stand with the hotel? I haven't heard anything about that.
It's out of our hands. They obviously closed on the city property. They're waiting, the last we knew, they were trying to close on the final piece of property, and that was I guess it would be, we call it the Hollywood shop, the place or whatever it's called. We've heard nothing since. We know that they were looking at taking out permits for fencing, which gave us an indication that there was going to be something happening there. We could follow up with the developer. I know there's been problems with the developer and the buyer. So we'll look into that and find out, but Mike, we've heard absolutely nothing on it.
Ideally, they would have broke ground by now, correct?
Well, they have that final piece of property they haven't purchased yet, which is not the city's. That's the coffee property, that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
And I don't know where they are, that's their negotiation, so we're not part of that.
And if you would, could you ask the mayor where we stand with the Orchard and get back to me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Ted, this is for Ted as well. Ted, just one thing since Tuesday. Northbound lane on North Main Street, right after Elm, going towards the top of the hill, after the Slovak Club, there's a cutout that's gone very bad. It's about 10 inches deep, about 5 feet wide or 6 feet wide, and left to right probably another 6 feet.
A cutout?
Yeah, it's definitely a cutout, it's not a pothole.
After,
Yeah, I don't know if it was the water company, gas company, or whoever cut it out, but they need to get up there and fix that place.
Is that a new cutout?
I'd say
Sometimes it takes more to get back.
about 4 months, 5 months.
No, it's not that.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
Mike, I don't mean to step over, but it's about, when I heard about the tractor trailers, the tractor trailers that are on Academy and carry out, if we had any resolution with that, we recently, the woman who's been complaining for years and years has posted on Facebook that she's thanked people for business over 37 years, indicating she's just fed up and that she's closing down. And here's a really good woman who's had 37 years of a hair salon on South River Street, and she's gotten nowhere with a neighbor next door with tractor trailers, with doing business out of trailers.
Yep.
So just keep it on your radar screen.
Sure, I can tell you exactly where that is. We had a visit to the property, the Cuss Tire property, which is where a lot of that problem is. They complied with, we gave them till Tuesday this past week to comply with the issues of where they store their tires and how they store their tires, as well as making sure that that trailer that is on Ellie's Pizza property is moved. Unfortunately, fortunately, they did the tire part, they didn't do the trailer part. Bill Harris is on that. That's obviously a violation. They will be cited. We will be after It's on private property, keep in mind. I've had this discussion with a couple of other people, so we can't do a whole lot with that, but it is on Ellie's Pizza property. So even though it's a trailer that apparently belongs to us, we will be citing Ellie's Pizza.
Thanks. And then I just, as I think many people know, Beth and I and George Brown, I know you're in the crowd of pushing residents association meetings. A Rolling Mill Hill Residents Association meeting will meet on Wednesday at the Mennonite Church on Blackman Street at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Tony, follow up
Yes.
with you. Ted had told me about that Bill was sending it. I contacted Donna.
Yeah.
Right now, she's happy, she's content. Hopefully that stirs him up and gets that trailer moved. I don't know how far he's gonna take it, if there's actual citation. I did talk to Bill, but I believe there's actually a citation that was sent out.
Great. Thank you.
Ted, as I'm sure you're aware, in the past 4 or 5 weeks, there's been 2 bicyclists hit on the same corner of West Market and River. Do you know if the police department maybe is conducting any study as to, why there's a sudden influx of people getting hit there, or?
Well, I'm sure they're looking into the circumstances surrounding them. I'm not sure if there's
Maybe it has to do with traffic patterns, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, and George said it is a PennDOT issue, of course.
Right.
It
I
involves
think
money.
they are. The last meeting, it was brought up, and I believe PennDOT is studying that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. John Ambrose and Donald Lucy. Just state your names for the record.
Don Lucy. John Ambrose, we're both from Waste Management. Good evening, my name is Don Lucy, and I'm here representing Waste Management and our Alliance landfill in nearby Taylor, PA. In short, I want to say you're throwing away your tax money with your trash. We would like to reduce the city's cost of landfill disposal services. And some people will say, well, how do you do that? It's actually quite simple. It's going on throughout northeastern PA and eastern PA right now. And it's called a fair and open bid process for landfill disposal services. Yeah, specifically landfill disposal services. We're not here to talk about the trash trucks or the cruisers or anything like that. But we're looking about landfill disposal services. It's probably been nearly, and I don't have the exact facts on this one, but it's probably been nearly 2 decades, 20 years, since the city last bid out its landfill disposal contract. By not putting this out for bid, the city and its residents have not enjoyed the benefits associated with competitive bidding. What are those benefits? I want to cite 3 recent examples of what other townships and cities have seen through competitive bidding. Forks Township, Northampton County. They recently put out for bid, specifically they put out for bid the landfill disposal services, goes down in that neck of the woods. They have 3 landfills and 1 transfer station available to them. They received back, as a result of the competitive bid process, they received bids from $45, $75 a ton, all the way up to $84, $95 a ton. Palmer Township, also down in Northampton County. They bid out their disposal services. They saw similar results. They're currently seeing a landfill disposal cost of less than $50 a ton. More locally, Dallas Area Municipal Authority. They bid out their landfill disposal services. They did it slightly different. They bid out a 5-year contract back in 2011, and the average rate on that 5-year contract was $50.54 a ton. Then they bid out a second 5-year contract. The rates stayed essentially the same. There was a 10-cent increase in the disposal cost up to $50.65. So Dallas is going to see the same disposal cost for 10 years. They're going to have basically over a 10-year period locked in. So I don't know what your current rate is at the landfill, which you're currently using, and I don't know the actual volume numbers that you're currently seeing. But I can give probably a pretty good estimate of what those volumes are. If you send 13,000 tons of material to the landfill each year, you could easily, through a competitive bid process, see a 5 to 7% cost reduction. That comes out to roughly $3 a ton. You go $3 a ton times the $13,000 tons, that's $39,000 just in landfill cost savings by putting it out for a fair and open bid. Now, it's not just looking at the landfill number. You know, if you want to go through the bid process and do it correctly, you need to consider the other savings. Some people might call them soft savings. You gotta look at the truck and travel time, you gotta look at the fuel savings, the turn time when your truck gets to the landfill, how long do they spend in the landfill before they come out, and you combine that with the hard savings, you know, that's the reduction in landfill costs and all the other savings you might achieve. You know, we did a rough estimate on what that would look like, but it could be $100,000 a year in savings if you properly manage your landfill disposal contract. That would be good news for your city's cash flow, you know, taking $100,000 off the line. Waste management, we've reached out to and even met with city officials multiple times. As far back as 2011, we set up an account for the city's flood debris. The account's still open. We met with city officials 4 or 5 times after that. All we're asking is let us help you reduce the cost of your landfill disposal services. Conduct a fair and open bid process. Locally, you have the benefit of having 3 local disposal sites that can easily handle your trucks. You have 2 landfills and a transfer station nearby. So again, let a fair and open competitive bid determine what the price should be. And again, right now you're throwing away your tax money with your trash. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Bill.
I know you probably don't know the rate that we're paying either right offhand for our trash landfill fees, but I wouldn't expect you to know it right now. But in view of what we just heard, I would have thought that this is something that we would do automatically.
Yeah, as they're aware, and we've met with them once, twice maybe. These other meetings they're referring to obviously go back several years, other administrations. We're in the process of putting together the parameters for a bid for just that reason. Now, there's a couple of other things that go into, he mentioned soft costs, and that truly is part of that. Whether or not, you know, our trucks have to travel on the turnpike, whether they have to travel through a town, you know, that's some of the stuff that we need to take a look at as that becomes some of the soft costs that we're concerned about. But we are absolutely putting that together, Councilman, and that will be out in the near future.
That's great. I know you're looking at the whole picture as far as trash, which we should, of course, but this is something that I think is easily computable, the time that we spend and the cost in getting to the landfills and back. So I'm glad to hear that we are doing it. Would you just keep us apprised to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Gerard Durling.
Hello. I am here because of Facebook complaining and the power of the media. Eyewitness News recently reported a ban within a 4-block radius of downtown Wilkes-Barre for bicycling on sidewalks and skateboarding entirely in that 4-block radius. I'm certain that I could agree with you about fining skateboarders who find the need to grind on public property. But I cannot really agree with the idea of banning it entirely in a heavily trafficked university area. Obviously, we have 2 colleges in the area, and I'm not totally sure that it was reported properly or correctly, so I was kind of coming here for verification on that. As well as was just said a little earlier, we did have 2 accidents inside of that 4-block radius amongst bicyclists that were utilizing the street, and as you said, this is kind of PennDOT's concern. However, in that interim time period, I was wondering if it would be possible in any way to to consider raising that ban for bicyclists until that is actually able to be rectified in a proper way, possibly even considering being a bit progressive in our area and installing bike lanes in that downtown area. As I'm certainly in favor of riding my bike on the street as a downtown business owner who rides my bike in the summer months. However, just a month ago, someone was involved in a fatal accident, and I don't personally want to be on the receiving end of that myself. So I will probably continue to ride my bike on the sidewalks until I receive a fine. But I was just wondering if there was any answer to that problem currently. Thank you.
I wasn't aware of any ban that was proposed by. Is there? I know there's currently different.
That's on skateboarding, but I didn't hear about bicycling.
Right.
I heard about skateboarding, but not bicycling.
Maybe we can look at. Is that? I'm assuming it's an existing ordinance.
I'm not aware.
Okay. I know there is an ordinance on. In the.
Yeah, we'll look at it, and as far as the bike lanes, and we'll talk to Butch Friday. I mean, that's been discussed before. The problem is, we probably don't have the space to be able to do that. So that is something that's been looked at in the past. And unfortunately, the way the streets are right now, it's probably not something we'll be able to do. But I'll look into that ban thing. I do not.
Yeah, I know there's certain regulations now. I'm not sure where you want. Okay. I'm speaking personally. I'm not in favor of any further regulations on bikes or skateboards or anything like that until we actually have a place for these people to go. As you stated, I'm assuming from the news report it said that there was a 4-block radius in the downtown. Okay. So I mean, in my opinion, if that was regulated and enforced, I think that would just push skateboarders to the neighborhoods and bicyclists to the neighborhoods too, and maybe even on private property at that point. I mean, personally, like I said, I'm not in favor of enacting anything further until we have somewhere else for these skateboarders to go, such as a skate park. I know, Tony, we've been in constant discussion about that and trying to get something moving that way. And I know a private group is working to get an indoor skate park in Wilkes-Barre, so hopefully that will help to rectify that situation.
Just to follow up on Ted's comments, there have been numerous proposals over the years. Most recently, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, the YMCA had a very definitive plan that they were going to propose to council. And a week or two before they were scheduled to come before council, they aborted it. And I think part of the reason for that, and major reason for that, is, as Ted mentioned, that our streets and sidewalks are so congested that what they were going to propose was not feasible in dedicating a specific lane on our streets in the downtown area for bikes exclusively. So there was a safety concerns there on behalf of the YMCA. So it has been proposed numerous times, but it's just such a tight fit to try and accomplish at this point. Maybe someone will come up with a feasible project again at some point in the future.
Dr. Reisinger?
I'm glad to be here to talk about the progress that's being accomplished at the Riverfront Park and Kirby Park. Thanks to City Council coming several times to review the overgrowth in the crime-ridden park area, which is a historic landscape which really should be restored. I just gave a tour to the group here tonight that presented on the Green Project here, and they seem to be excited about the possibility of restoring and working with the city on restoring that park to its original homestead design, which would alleviate the flood threat that it is creating. The levee board has already stated that because of overgrowth and deposition in the flood channel, the levees can no longer prevent the next flood. The risk is totally elevated because of the overgrowth and lack of maintenance of the floodway channels, just like Collins Creek and Mill Creek, which have become overgrown, which creates destruction of the levee system. And so You know, I've been in there daily, myself and helpers from the Seneca Nation, cleaning out some of the trails, working on restoring around the caretaker's cottage, working with Representative Aaron Coffer and the Seneca Nation to restore some of the historic parts of that park related to the Seneca Nation. But every day, I'm calling the police to come in and help me because there are criminals in there every day, either drinking, doing drugs, or camping illegally. And I ran into a couple of very good police officers who said, you know, what we really need is a bike patrol. And I said, I know that. I said, I had a film and a letter from the Syracuse Police Bike Patrol, probably one of the best in the world. The bike patrol program up there, they also educate the children in town on bike riding. They have bike races in their beautiful riverfront park where I coach rowing up there. And they sent me a packet that I gave to Mayor George. I never got a response from Mayor George. A beautiful letter was written to Mayor George, and I mentioned it when I gave the tour to the city months ago that it wouldn't be great to have a bike patrol again, because we have 6 or 7 bicycles in storage at the police station. And they said, we can't afford anything. And so that was the abrupt answer. And so, but speaking to these police, walking in the woods with them, they said, you know, we really need a bike patrol. These policemen agreed. And I said, well, let's get organized. Let's do it. Let's get a grant writer. There's a letter here from Syracuse Police, the best in the country, inviting Wilkes-Barre to come up, take a couple courses, and learn how to grant write so we can get bike patrol back downtown and back over that dangerous riverfront. And I don't know what to do with it. I mean, is it going to go into the trash can? Is there anybody that really wants to patrol the city by bike and reduce crime in that area? This group that just did the green plan, they thought it would be a great project to restore that park to its original hydrology. And we would have a proud Olmsted Park, just like Buffalo has, like Niagara has, just like Washington, D.C., Fairmont Park. We have the most beautiful Olmsted Kirby Park in the state, and it's a crime-ridden. It's full of mosquitoes in the back part. It's terrible, and it's embarrassing. And it's a landscaping for the National Historic Market Street Bridge. And I can't believe if we have the Kirby Foundation that could restore half of the park last year. Who wrote the checks for that? And basically the other half of Kirby Park, which is not a zoo. It was not a zoo. It's a beautiful water park with fountains, a band shell, a beautiful greenhouse, a swimming beach, changing room, family picnic area. You know, the city's always said, oh, it was just an old zoo. It was not an old zoo. It was a beautiful, renowned, historic park, which is part of our beauty. I mean, I'm proud to be part of this Wyoming Valley. I grew up being proud to be from Wilkes-Barre. My father was a jeweler. My grandfather was a head chef at the Hotel Sterling. My grandfather ran a printing union for the Printers Association here. I love my city, but I can't stand the fact that I can't run a rowing program. I can't have a row. I had 4 schools rowing here in the mid-90s and early 2000s. Kings, Wilkes, Susquehanna, Scranton University, all came here and rowed on the beautiful river. They burned my trailer, threw all the equipment in the river, and did anybody help? No. Nobody cared. Just like when Richard Hosey was here saying, come over to the park, they're dealing heroin. There's kids being drugged out of the woods ODing on heroin. Nobody came. Nobody came from the city to see what Richard was talking about. You know how we got the pit bull out and the 2 heroin dealers? We went to the National Guard at the Kingston Army and says, look, can you come in here and help get these people out of here? And 3 guys came with fatigues on their weekend off, and arrested those guys with the pit bull dealing heroin. And that's how we started the cleanup. My friend Richard Hosey died of a heart attack in my arms behind my garage, running from a heroin dealer because they were waiting for to kill him at his apartment at the Kingston Townhouse. That's how I am very concerned about this park. I've lost, my cousin was murdered in that park 20 years ago. You go into, there's another missing person. I met the family, they're looking for their son. He was from York, a halfway house. He came to Public Square looking for heroin. He never showed up for his job. He walked into the woods over there to get heroin and never came out. The Edwardsville police won't even go in there, especially below the train bridge. They said, well, you can't go in there. We only have 2 policemen. I said, I know. They all have weapons. And so that's what's going on in the middle of our community. And let's do something. Let's get bike, let's do what Syracuse is doing. Let's start working. We don't have a PAL group to work with our young people in this community. The police are not working with the young people. We should have bike races, and we should have a fitness program for the police.
I'm going to stop you right there,
Yeah.
Dr. Reisinger. I've gone on a couple tours with you, and I know a few of the other council members have. And Mr. Ryan went, of course, too. And I mean, we all agree that there was a major issue over there. I mean, we saw sleeping bags and that in one area there, tents, everything. I mean, it's horrible, and it is. You're right; it is an embarrassment. And I think it's a combination of a policing issue and just the overall condition of the woods over there itself and the area. And like the mayor said, I will agree with him that the number one issue is funding and money for it. I would be really interested to see what Syracuse has to say about grant writing and how we can get bike patrols in there and how we can improve it.
We need a delegate to go up and answer this beautiful letter that was never responded to by our mayor. At least say, well, maybe in a couple months, or maybe I'll send a delegate up to, but do something.
Would we be able to get a copy of that?
You can have
we make
it,
a
but I'm afraid to give it to anybody if you don't.
Well, that's what we'll make copies.
If you don't use it. I mean, I
You can keep the original.
I don't want it to
No,
go
I
in the
know.
trash can.
No, I agree. Yeah, we'll get copies made of it.
I mean, I would love to coach the police at rowing. At one time, the Wilkes-Barre police were the best rowers in the country in the early 1900s. They should be in shape. They could be training.
Right. Did you have anything to add, Mr.
And Doctor, a couple of times you've mentioned grants. You are aware of grants that could be used in this capacity?
This group here can help with grants because they know the Olmsted group.
Right.
They know how to get it.
And you've also mentioned that all it would take would be the city's grant writer being willing to work with outside resources.
But, you know, it's time. I mean, we got to get the rowers back on the river. I had thousands of kids rowing on the river there for about 10 years and all over. It's a beautiful rowing course. And I can't go there. It's amazing. I live here and I can't use the best road.
That would be a great endeavor.
Yeah.
So.
It's been done before and I just need help.
And thank you for everything you're doing over there, Dr. Reisinger.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Actually, my question is for you, Bill. Did we have a police athletic league? What happened to that? How do they operate? How do they work?
Well, we did, but probably more importantly, back in the 1990s, we had a pretty robust police mountain bike group, and you're probably familiar with them.
Right.
And part of their responsibilities were that park area, places that were not easily accessible any other way. And that was through a Community Policing Department of Justice grant. They're out there, but they're not as available as they were back in the 1990s. It's an expense, but they use them in downtown in areas that were difficult to access with vehicles, but they were very effective. And for one reason or another, I'm not quite sure, but we can check and see if there is some funding available.
Well, Syracuse would love to.
Yeah, it's a Community Policing Department of Justice grant. They were trained by what was called IPMBA, the International Police Mountain Bike Association. They could pretty much go up and down steps and do just about anything. But even more important than that, right now, we should be in there. We shouldn't have to wait for you to call or anyone else. We have vehicles that are capable of getting into those areas right now. And I'm going to ask if we could just ask to have the police just put this on there. I know they have a million other things to do, but we shouldn't have to wait for somebody to call or something to happen. That should be checked on a somewhat regular basis, that area in there.
And Bill, I've been with Dr. Reisinger over there, and if we go in there and cut it, and cut these trees and the cover, I mean, that's going to eliminate half the problem right there. But we got to keep up on it, you know?
Yeah, so it's
now it's neglected.
multifaceted.
You see how it is now, and it attracts trouble, and we saw full suitcases there of people that are just living there. So.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's things we can do without waiting for grants for biking and everything. We can get in there and like you just said.
Officer Jones.
Ken Jones.
You know, and he would love to see this bike patrol. thing happen. I mean, he's the one that told me that at the time.
And now is the time of year to do it, right?
Yeah.
Now is the time. Okay. Great.
Thank you, Dr. Reisinger. Angel Giroux?
Angel Giroux, Executive Director, South Spanish Run, Southern Law. I just one correction again. On Monday, the mayor spoke once again about why the pool was closing. And he used words because of lifeguards, but what really got me, gang activity. I would ask the mayor's office to be very careful to use that term, gang activity. What I know is the rank and file police officers who work there, and what I know, there's no gang activity there. You have kids who are being nuisance. You've had people come here and describe a nuisance, so we have to be very careful when you give credence to gangs that are not there and you create a problem that's not there. Number two, I want to give a big thanks to Mr. George Brown, what he's doing down there, and that's much needed. So when you say things like this, it doesn't do projects like he's doing any good. We have to be very careful. Once again, if somebody please explain to me, please again, first they said it was about money, now they said can't get lifeguards about gang. What's the real issue once again, why that pool cannot be open? Is there any hope down the road that pool can be open? Once again, as you hear, one of the big things we face this year, a lot of school programs are being cut. Every food program is bare minimum. We can barely keep up with the needs of the community. And I know the city came up with a new program. I hope you can explain that today. I hope you can explain that to the city council people, how it's essential they're involved into that. So if my time could be given, if I could ask some questions like one, is any chance down the road that that pool, any reason, could be open for a few days, a few hours? Again, much needed. If you hear what we need in this town is more activities for people to do, not less. And again, if you explain the program that was announced by the mayor, how that's going to work about these parks that will be used with the tenants. So can you please explain that?
Are you finished with your presentation?
I'm done presentation, but if you give me an answer, can I get an answer?
Sure. Two things. One is, first of all, as far as the pool, I think we were very transparent as far as one of the reasons, or several reasons why we weren't looking at opening the pool. One of them was financial. The second one was the fact that we thought it was very underutilized last year. The third thing is we had trouble, as you know, staffing the pool last year. It opened late as a result of that. And I know that there are other pools in the area right now contemplating not opening because they can't get enough lifeguards either. So that entered into it. And then the other thing is the fact that we were concerned about the activity that we had to keep sending the police down there. We had break-ins, we had thefts, we had fights in the parking lot, we had properties around there that were vandalized. So when we put all that together and looked at what we can do and does it make sense for us to go and put money into that, that was one of the things we looked at being cut.
But isn't that kind of misleading, as then do the pool and you announce house breaking and windows breaking? What does that have to do with the pool? Again, we're creating this illusion, this is a major problem in this little pool. And what I've heard people here, what the police rank and file told me, little misdemeanors, no gang activities. And again, we can't say the building was broken and 2 doors down, that affects the kids' schools. Again, what I've heard people up here say was, those kids give us a little nuisance. I've not heard any major things. Again, we have to start looking at rhetoric. Again, what happens when people keep hearing that section's down there bad because of gang or break-ins? It doesn't do our community any good, our section. It doesn't help our property value. So I'm asking you to be very careful to use that term gang activity. I don't think it is. Again, we need that pool to be open. I think the biggest problem we have in my section are landlords. We had some tenants with Mr. Lusco told you about a landlord we've had problems for years. And I hope that to be corrected. So again, those problems we have down there. So again, I'm asking that the city has to be very careful to use those terms gangs. It affects the good works that people like George Brown are doing down there in the area. So please, be very cautious to use those terms. Thank you.
Angel, I was there at Cole Street when the mayor said that, and I knew he misspoke. Right off the bat, I said, no, that's the first time, no, it wasn't gangs. And he didn't mean to say gangs. I think he meant like gangs of kids, and then just went gang activity and put it in a nutshell. But you're exactly right. Those terms didn't need to be.
Right, and I know the mayor really didn't mean, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that term cannot be used that lightly, that it affects. Again, you give credit to gangbangers who don't need it, and it flex their muscles. And again, you never say you're going to reach out to the neighborhood and say our police can't do it. Our police can tackle anybody, anyone, any neighborhood, any day of the week. So we have to be very careful when we use those terms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drew.
Can I finish?
Go ahead.
Just to finish some of the comments regarding the pool, there was illegal activity down there. We did have trouble with break-ins at the concession stand for the pool. We did have assaults in the parking lot. We actually were asked at the very end of the season last year to make sure that the patrols by the police department were either there in the parking lot at the close of the day, or at least in that general area. So, you know, we have to make sure we understand the entire picture. I'm not using the word gangs. I'm just saying we did have a significant amount of issues down in that general area with that pool. So when you put everything together, Angel, as I explained to you before, that's part of the issue. The second issue, which I need to that you asked me about, was the parks issue. And we had a press conference on Monday that announced the fact that due to a program that was brought to us by Pennsylvania Career Link through their summer work program, that they're able to provide the funding for the park attendants that will be not only in 5 parks, but also in the 6th park, which is the minor park, which we're putting park attendants in this year because of the fact, obviously, that the pool will not be open. So PA Career Link deserves all the credit for bringing that to us. They're hiring, they're paying for all the attendance in these playgrounds. They'll be there from 10 to 2. They will allow them to do the food and fun program through the Y and CEO. United Way is actually doing a reading program in the parks as well. We're very appreciative of the fact that they brought that to the city, because without that, there would probably be no park attendance.
Oh, yeah, those
the
are
parks would never be enclosed.
Yeah, and these are
But
both
as far as
programs that...
Mr. Drew, I can't have back and forth.
One last thing, how's the community gonna know about when these events are taking place? That's one of my concerns. These programs are being done every year. When are the communities around gonna know that they're coming out there, will be there that day? How's the community around those parks will know they're gonna be there that day?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. The park attendants will be there Monday through Friday,
Right.
10 to 2, just like they have been in every other year. The food and fun is done by the Y and CEO. You might want to call them.
Right, well, when they bring the food, the community's gonna be told in that area the food.
Well, you might want to ask the Y and CEO. Okay, again, they'll provide lunch, they'll provide a snack, but that's their program.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask to speak, but I would like to mention, he's talking about the parks.
I need your name. Can I have your name for the record?
My name is Mary Ellen Jones.
Okay. Can you come up to the dais, please?
Sorry, I apologize, everyone. I'm working together with CEO, and there's going to be at Ironman Park, there's going to be lunch there daily for the children, and I'm going to be one of the volunteers there. I have a few other people. I also am going to be having activities for the children down there, such as finger paints and all kinds of stuff for all the children. So we do have a Facebook page for that. It's the Rolling Mill Hill Resident Association Youth Group, and I will be announcing it on there. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew. I was a little late with everything, so everybody's laughing at me. But yeah, I'm working with CEO right now. I have to go through a class now. Next week I'm going to be doing a class to learn how to serve the food properly and everything. We all have our background checks done, criminal and child abuse, for anybody who will be volunteering.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Rabbi Lerner?
Yeah, it's about the same thing. Come back around. I won't say much more. Rabbi Lerner. I've always enjoyed being here. Always lively discussions about so many things going on in the city. The Kistler Pool, I just thought, you found a way in which to cover a budget for the parks. I thought maybe there's a way. I know that there's problems, but, we do the patrols. I think the police are more in shape than, I personally wouldn't want to try to run away from the police. So if they're at if you can coordinate it, maybe there's a way in which it can function. Because you have some parks that are open, and I think it might be worthwhile for the city to have a place for the park, especially for kids that don't have any other place to go. Better to have a place to go that they can be social as opposed to everywhere else they might go. Just saying that it's nice for them to have a place in which they can be centered, and as opposed to where, I don't know, our children, we were all children once, if we don't have anything to do, we're gonna cause trouble, right? Think about it. If you don't have a place for them in which to congregate, have fun in a way that's legal and positive, thank you, then they might do something less than positive. Find abandoned properties which are still in the city. Because that's what kids do, they explore. And as a council, you have a responsibility to make sure the kids have places to go. And we found a way in which to do 5 or 6 of the parks, and maybe you can add one more to it. That's quite a positive way in which to work with the kids. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rabbi Lerner, I think you were at the last meeting too when we discussed the pool, and I stated then that I'm in full support of the Kistler pool. We've had it for how many years now, and now it's going to be the first year in a long time that we don't have the Kistler pool available. However, that was an administrative decision, and I'm not sure what council's role would be in rectifying that situation, but I'm sure that we will continue to try and work together to find some sort of way to get that pool back open and see how we can remedy the situation. So. Anyone else? All right, John Sahoski.
John Sahoski, Owen Lane. Just about that gang activity thing. When you state that in the paper as a reason, you know, it makes it look like the gang's won. So, I don't know, he's right with being careful with your words. I think it's wrong that the mayor's not here for, when we voted on this, the bond issue. He really needs to be here for this, because this affects budgets over years and years, and we really should have had him here to sell his, you know, this is his idea. But I just wanted to make sure that we have, when we're gonna have a plan for how the money's gonna be spent with this, and when we're gonna get this 5-year plan. That's all I have.
Mr. Wampel?
If I may. The reason the mayor is not here tonight, and he had full intention of being here tonight, is he is attending to a personal issue in Allentown. And I think that's all that needs to be said about that. But before we start, you know, throwing arrows at him and you know, accusing him of not being here, the issue he's dealing with right now is serious enough that you need to have his attention.
Okay, thank you. Sam Troy? Angel Mathis?
Angel Mathis, Wilkes-Barre. I have 4 issues, but before I get to those, as a downtown resident who live amongst those 4 blocks, there is actually an ordinance prohibiting bicycles on the sidewalk. I have come here many years asking for bike lanes, which there's no room for them because it's parking everywhere, even in traffic lanes within that 4 block. There are parking meters where it blocks, it encroaches on the actual lane of traffic. And then the other thing is, as a downtown resident, I have been hit by many people riding bikes on the sidewalk during the business hours because I'm a downtown resident. I live down here even after everyone closed their businesses and go home. And I have kids who have skateboards, who have bicycles. They do it at my mother's house, and she lives in Rolling Mill Hill. And quite honestly, I'm one of the people who continually ask you to enforce the ordinance of the bikes and skateboarders on sidewalks, because I appreciate not being hit, because after all, it is a sidewalk, not a sidewalk. But going back to my issues, one thing that I do have to ask you guys or make you guys informed of is getting warm, and the panhandling already started. Going into the senior center, a young man walked across, talked about, hey, how you doing? Do you have $1? And I'm not, even though I'm on that board, I'm not a member, but I do volunteer there. And if they're asking me for money, I can imagine what they're doing with the members who actually pay to go there to have lunch, to participate in the activities there. So, because, you know, I haven't been here for a while, and it's good to be back because the semester's over, but I also see that the room has emptied a lot as well. Can someone please look into that? My second issue is Charles Street Park. I know, seeing the news and not being able to actually be here, that the city does have debt, and this is something that we've known for a long time, and you guys did not create it, however, you did inherit it. And it only concerns me with the closing the Kistler Pool, that you have Charles Street Park that actually needs upgrades. And I understand that it may not be in the budget, but, if a grant becomes available, can you guys put that on your list to update Charles Street Park? And then my last issue is with summer programs, because as Rabbi Lerner said, that kids would get into things, and they do. And, I've been a resident in Wilkes-Barre since 1989. And to go from having 2 parks to having 1 park, which for many years, being on a fixed income, we actually bought pool passes and frequented Whistler after Full Street closing. And so this is the first year we'll be without a pool. And my concern is, without the pool, is it ever going to open again, or is it going to be another thing where we just don't have a city pool? Because not everyone can afford to go to the Y to go swimming, or to go to the CYC to go swimming. And if it's a hot summer, you can only go to the splash pads if they're working. And with the disrepair of the fountain, it's not like it's a fountain in public square. And over in the waterfront, the water isn't authorized to actually be used that way. So my question is this, since as of right now the pool is closed, what programs other than lunch in the parks will there be to eliminate some of the increase of crime that may happen?
I can answer a few of your questions. Regarding the panhandling, I brought that up a few months ago to council. That I work downtown. I've experienced panhandling many times, and the last time I brought it up to council, I was actually followed from the square to my workplace.
I forgot one thing. I did.
All right, good.
Sorry. And then the traffic pattern on River and Market. The cars are not stopping for pedestrians to walk across, and it's a very dangerous corner.
Right.
Can something be done about that?
And that is going to be looked into on PennDOT's end.
Okay.
The lights.
Right, the lights. So.
Well, they run through them.
Right. Well, we're going to try and remedy the situation. As I was saying regarding the panhandling, I did attempt to introduce the panhandling ordinance. However, after the city attorney's office reviewed it, they found that there have been a lot of issues in different towns that have introduced a panhandling ordinance. For example, the ACLU has sued the towns because they don't deem it appropriate for homeless people and different things like that. And also the chief of police was also against the panhandling ordinance because of the legalities of it and what the city could face if they were sued. I do agree that something needs to be done. What that remedy is, I'm not sure. Maybe it wouldn't be a legal remedy, but something that we can put in place or do to help prevent panhandling, because I agree it is a huge issue downtown. Regarding the department head's attendance, I feel like I'm kind of hitting my head against a wall when I'm talking about this. But Mr. Brooks and I and a few other members of council have stated how important it is for department heads to attend these meetings and for the mayor to attend meetings when he's able. And I can't stress enough the importance of that. Not just because of what's on council's agenda, but also because of what the public might bring to us. And we don't have all the answers for everything that goes on in the departments, and it would certainly be beneficial for them to attend. So again, I would like to stress that I would like their attendance here. I'm not sure if anybody else can answer any of your questions or concerns.
As far as the parks in general, I know that the Community Development Department has been went to every single park, made a list, trying to see if they can come up with funds to update some of the parks and make them a little bit more useful. As far as things to do at the park that I don't have an answer for, unfortunately, right now. But, I can certainly be happy to help in any way that I can in that way. But I do know that we are on the parks, and I don't have a list of parks yet, but if they can be opted by the community development section of us, then we're going to try to do as many as we can.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Professor of some sort.